confusion and lies. Guys, you know I have a big mouth, but I read a lot of people that I admire when it comes to issues. So I try to stay up on my game per se. But when news breaks like it has, and we're watching historic times when it comes to the markets, when it comes to these tariffs. I mean, we're just seeing stuff that frankly we haven't seen before or in quite some time in the United States of America. And this is exactly why I have economist, supply chain expert, which is one of the things that I believe sets him apart from others. Also, he's a columnist for the Daily Wire, Washington Examiner, FoxNews.com, Newsweek. He's been everywhere. I'm speaking of Jim Nelles. Jim, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show.
Good evening, Carl. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing good, Jim. All right, let me just ask you because people want to know. There's a debate that's happening within the Republican Party, within the conservative movement, within the MAGA movement. First off, tariffs. I'm a free market guy, but I love the way that Trump has used tariffs for leverage. But I got to admit, sometimes I'm like, whoa, yeah, I never expected I would say that. To be honest with you, except with China. And I love what he's doing with China. But just give us your overall take on what you've witnessed in the last week or so.
Well, let me tell you this. My least favorite word in the English language is equity. But what Trump is trying to do is create equity in trade. He's trying to get situations where there are no trade barriers, tariffs or otherwise, between countries. So we can let Adam Smith's theory of comparative advantage take over, and countries that are good at manufacturing one thing manufacture those, countries that are good at manufacturing other things manufacture those things, and then we have free trade. That's what we need to see. What Trump has done, it's quite masterfully actually. Think back to the first part of his tenure as president the second time around. He used the threat of tariffs to get countries to take back their illegal citizens, their citizens who were here illegally. He told Colombia, take them back or I'll destroy your economy. He said pretty much the same thing to other countries. And all of a sudden, they're sending their own planes here to pick these people up, right? Then we come to what he did. Let's set China aside for 1 second. The rest of the world, he's basically saying, look, if you're going to tariff our goods, I'm going to reciprocate and tariff your goods to the same tune. I'm not doing anything vindictive. I'm not doing anything predatory. I'm just going to tariff you the way that you tariff me. This is something, as Trump has said, should have been done decades ago, but no one's had the courage to do it. And sometimes when you are sick, you have to take a little bit of medicine, and that medicine sometimes makes you a little sick before you get a lot better. And that's what we're going through now. But if you see what happened over the last 24 hours, things have changed significantly. And I think the world now sees that Trump is willing to negotiate with them. And I think we are not going to see, other than China, the retaliatory and the matching tariffs anymore, as long as these countries are negotiating in good faith with the United States.
Okay, now let's talk to the consumer that's out there, some of the people that have the 401k, which honestly, those aren't the people that are going to be looking at their stock trades every day. Mostly it's going to be Wall Street people, it's going to be daily traders, but obviously there's going to be older people out there that are looking to retire. The volatility in the market scares them. But I do think in the long run, this is going to be better for America. But there may be some people out there that don't want to hear that. What do you say to those people? Because we saw, I mean, record gains yesterday in the market. That was insane. And then we have a calming effect today.
Yeah, and that just shows you how people take advantage of profit taking when things go up like that, right? But my message to everyone, and I'm not a financial advisor, is calm down and take a deep breath. The tariffs went into effect on April 2nd, and they were reversed on April 9th. That's 1 week. No good that was shipped from any place has hit the land yet in the United States, and therefore is not subject to the tariff. The tariffs did not impact anything coming into the United States. It won't impact anything coming into the United States until about April 1st. And right now, that's only from China, with the exception of the 10% tariffs that were already in place to begin with. Okay, so go ahead, please.
Do you mean May 1st? You said April 1st.
Excuse me, May 1st. So
okay.
we still got 2.5 weeks before anything would have hit the shores that are going to be subject to the tariffs. They did not tariff anything that was on the water before 12:01 a.m. last night, Eastern time. So
okay, that's good to know.
Everything that's there is there. Now, China is a different story, and this is a totally different situation with China. For Trump, in my opinion, China is personal. He still blames China for the 2020 election because of COVID, and that he was not reelected. So he is going to dig his heels in, and he's going to do everything he can do to fight this battle.
Jim, I want to pimp slap myself in the face. I don't know why that escaped me. And I thought about that before, but since this has been going on, and I've even talked about COVID and these soldiers that contracted COVID back in 2019 playing in these
Mm-hmm.
games or whatever in China, and I'm sitting here thinking you're right. They destroyed or they contributed to the destruction, if you will, of his first administration. And obviously, they were complicit in him not getting elected again earlier. I mean, I frankly, I think it was a God thing because I think he's better this time
I
around,
agree. I
quite
agree.
frankly. But nonetheless, it is what it is. I mean, this is an excellent point. You wrote a column for the Daily Wire. Again, I'm speaking of Jim Nelles, and what I like about Jim is he's a supply chain expert as well. I remember the first time I interviewed him, I'm like, I had interviewed economists before, but I was like, I've never even seen a supply chain expert. I didn't even so a Navy veteran as well.
Hey, man, until COVID, no one cared about us, so it was okay.
But you know what? But it's huge. It's huge because with the impact of these tariffs, like I'll be honest with you, I didn't even realize that. Okay, so we're good. We've got some negotiating time when it comes to these tariffs actually hitting our shores, and obviously this is going to be a long drawn out war between Trump and China. And I know that you're right. Obviously Trump needs to win this thing, but it's beneficial for the United States to win against China.
Right. And so now, with the tariffs, with the 90-day freeze, you're now looking at not seeing any impact of tariffs, again, setting aside China, until the middle of August at the earliest. But my hypothesis and what I recommended for the administration in the article that was published today is, look, any country that's negotiating with us in good faith and reduces their tariffs, we should go ahead and not implement tariffs against them. We should make that freeze permanent during the negotiation phase. As Jamie Dimon said to Maria Bartiromo yesterday, these deals are complex. These deals take a lot of time. But for Vietnam, for example, if Vietnam says to us in their negotiation, we will take all of our tariffs to zero, and we'll work with you on the trade deficit, and we'll work with you on non-tariff trade barriers in order to get those removed so we have free and fair trade, we should say to Vietnam, we will not put any tariffs on you while you're negotiating in good faith. And that's why I think it's so important that he has handed off the negotiations to the secretary, because the secretary thinks like that. He's a cool, calm head. And again, he can always tell people, you either get a deal done with me or you got to go negotiate with the crazy orange man. And the crazy orange man is going to be really mad if I have to call him and have him come over here.
And I gotta say this, Jim. And I like Lutnick, I like Navarro, but there's a calming effect, almost like a grown up in the room. I'm just being frank here. When it comes to Scott Besson, I didn't even know the guy, frankly, before Trump picked him. But the guy knows how to will and deal. I watched his testimony, if you will, on the Hill. Once he got the nomination or his Senate confirmation hearing, I should say, and I was like, man, I was just thoroughly impressed by the guy. He just speaks calmly, matter of factly. He never. I mean, he's just monotone. He never seems to raise his voice, lower his voice, just one pitch, and he knows about what he speaks. And I'm like, man, that's just great for the markets, and it's great for Trump, frankly.
I agree with you 100%. And the thing about him is that he really understands not only trade, but capital markets. He understands the impact of trade on interest rates and what the interest rates do to the national debt and how all of these things come together. So he's going to negotiate smart deals. What I really hope happens, and what I was trying to get at in my article, is that Trump needs to take the win. He needs to say, I threatened all these countries. 75 countries are lined up in order to negotiate with us. As long as they're negotiating in good faith, and I believe that they're trying to get a deal done, I will not put the tariffs back in place. That's also going to send a very strong message to China, and that's going to force China to come to the table.
That honestly, that is an excellent point. Trump needs to take the win. I think that'll have a calming effect on the markets. And quite frankly, I want to ask you this, Jim. I'm not sure that we have enough time remaining in this block, so we may have to carry over to the next block. But I suspected that we were heading for a recession, no matter what. do you think we got less than a minute left in this block? Do you think we're headed for a recession? And frankly, even if we are, I feel like there should be some messaging done on Trump's side. Hey, this is where we were headed. We're fixing what Biden damaged. 30 seconds.
Well, we still have the Biden hangover, right, from the economy. And that's something that Trump is working to fix. We do not have to head into a recession. And what we cannot allow to happen is to have the mainstream media talk us into a recession like they did in 2008. And I'm happy to elaborate on that when we come back from the break.
Okay, that is a great point, because that is part of the hysterics out there. That will happen. People pull their money. People, I mean, it happens. It happens, and God forbid that it happens again, because that's exactly what the left wants to happen. I mean, for God's sakes, these people hate Doge that are finding waste, fraud, and abuse. It's insane. More with Jim Nelles on the other side. You're listening to the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back momentarily. All right, guys, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. Just a reminder to please subscribe to the Carl Jackson Show wherever you go to get your podcasts. If you're watching us live right now on X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, we appreciate you tuning in. Again, please subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Rumble, Salem Podcast Network, wherever you go to get your podcasts. Also, all things social media, X, Instagram, and Facebook at Carl Jackson Show or at the Carl Jackson Show. And I try to respond to as many of you as possible. I was slacking a little bit today. I promise you, my thumbs will get back to work tomorrow. But I but I try to respond to as many people as possible. So I appreciate you being out there. Okay, I want to get back to my guest. And guys, we're speaking to Jim Nelles. Jim Nelles is a Navy veteran. He's an economist. He's a supply chain expert. He's a columnist. He knows about tariffs. He knows about trade. And again, one of the things that sets him apart is he's a supply chain expert, and I think that's perfect for what we're dealing with right now. You can check out his latest column in the Daily Wire. It's entitled "Don't Doubt the Art of the Deal." Don't doubt the art of the deal by Jim Nelles. Okay, Jim. So before we went to the break, you made an excellent point. The media can talk us into a recession. These I got to be honest with you. Before I came on, Jim, I was watching a little bit of the news. I was getting hot watching some of these clips of these people on these propaganda networks that didn't say a doggone thing about the corpse that was running, quote unquote, the country for 4 years. The economy was in shambles. They locked us down during COVID, destroyed countless businesses, jobs lost across the country. I mean, just absolutely insane. Spent money like it was going out of style. And the media were just lapdogs. And now, oh, now they're digging in their heels. Now they want to be real journalists. It is so upsetting. And you say they could bring on a recession.
And they can. I mean, if you look back, I'll never forget in 2008, I was doing some consulting work in South Korea, and I'm on the treadmill at a hotel in Seoul, and I'm watching CNBC, and I'm watching Jim Cramer set his hair on fire, what hair he had left, and run around screaming that the world was going to end, and you should take all of your money and put it into gold because we're going to have recession. And then everyone ran with the recession. I remember getting on the phone to my wife and said, they're going to talk us into a recession, and it's the worst thing in the world. And they're trying to do it again. Let me ask you a question, Carl. Did you know that today the Consumer Price Index came out and core inflation is at its lowest rate in 4 years? Did you know that?
I didn't check
because
that.
You know what? No one talked about it. Inflation has come down every month that Trump has been in office. Core inflation is at its lowest rate since March of 2021 when Biden was in office. Okay. So things are happening. The price of oil is under $60 a barrel. The price of eggs has come down by almost 2/3 since Trump has come in office. Now, is he responsible for the eggs? No, except for the regulations. They changed some regulations so they're not killing all these chickens. And all of a sudden, if you have more chickens, you get more eggs. It's amazing how that happens, right? But he's responsible for the price of oil coming down because he's drill, baby, drill, right? He's doing all these things with regulations to make America energy independent again. And so the economy is actually doing quite well. And here's the thing. Now that we have this tariff news and we have people understanding what's going on with the tariffs, and if Trump is disciplined enough, and that's the hardest thing for him is to be disciplined at times. And I love the man, but he has to be more disciplined sometimes. If he's disciplined, people will have the confidence to go and spend their money. And if they have the confidence to spend their money, it doesn't matter what Jim Cramer says, because only 12 people watch that show anyway. And they're going to be able to keep the economy going, because the economy does not have to go into recession. Now, if he left all those tariffs in place while he was negotiating, we would have slid into recession without a doubt, because of the pricing that's happening there. Companies cannot afford to absorb a 75% tariff on a product. They can't. They have to pass that on to the consumer. And so now that he's put the freeze on the tariffs, it's going to give Americans, the consumer, the confidence to spend money and to keep the economy going. And that's exactly what we need.
Do you suspect that what's going to happen? You have, I believe you wrote, I think you said 99, if I'm not mistaken, countries that have that have already come to the table. If I'm not mistaken, if I recall in your column, that the Trump administration are already working with. So, do you suspect before May 1st we'll have deals done with these countries that'll calm the storms? But we're going to continue with this fight against China, which frankly we have to win. I said yesterday, Jim, that we're in a cold war with China. I truly do believe that, and I believe that it's one we need to win, and we can win it with this tariff battle.
What I believe is going to happen is that in the next 7 to 10 days, you're going to see them announce that they have deals in principle with several major trading partners. And I believe it's going to be Japan. I believe it's going to be South Korea. And I believe it's going to be Vietnam. I actually believe there's going to be a strategy to surround China with trading partners from that have no tariffs with the United States, in order to put maximum pressure on China. I think that's part of their strategy. They're not saying that out loud, but if you look at who they're talking to right now, it is those countries.
I love that. I love that. White House clarifies new China tariff rate of 145%, not 125. You heard Mr. Wonderful the other day say that, Jim, they should be 400% as far as he's concerned. And I want to get to some of the things that he mentioned as well. But what do you say to that?
Well, I'm just waiting for when they come out and say that the tariffs are infinite, right? We're just going to have infinite tariffs on people. But in all seriousness, the one thing that's hurtful about the tariffs with China is that even if American companies wanted to repatriate back to the United States, number one, it takes a little bit of time.
Yep.
Number two, though, the supporting industries don't necessarily exist in the United States. And so you may not be able to get the components that you need in order to manufacture the goods that you want to make in the United States without having to import them from overseas. And some of those places might have to be China. Now, I found it very interesting when the interview with Jamie Dimon yesterday. He made a very, very good point when he said some industries are more important than others. Does it really matter about sneakers? No, he doesn't care where sneakers are made. Does he care where pharmaceuticals are manufactured? Yes. Does he care where American weaponry or American drones are manufactured? Absolutely. So we need to be very, very, very smart about this. The other thing is that I think, the administration had sent mixed messages, and I talked about this in the article, about what the purpose of the tariffs were. Were they to get free and fair trade? Were they to bring manufacturing back to America? Now, Carl, if you look historically, manufacturing in the United States reached its peak in 1979, when we had just about 20 million people involved in manufacturing. Since then, it's come down. It reached a low point right around 2010, 2012. Nowadays, there are about 13 million people involved in manufacturing. So we've never been a country that was all manufacturing. It's only the highest point, I think, was about 22% of the economy. Okay. So we're never going to be a country that manufactures everything. We actually, until the 1930s, the biggest industry in the United States was agriculture. We were farmers. So we have to just, again, I come back to Adam Smith. Let the countries that are good at making some things make those things. Let countries that are good at making other things make those things. And don't put trade barriers up to artificially prop up industries. And that, I think, is the purpose of what Trump is trying to do.
Okay. All right. Now that makes perfect sense, because that ultimately, and frankly, that's where I thought we were going. We ultimately we want free trade, but we also don't want China cheating in the ways in which they do. Let me just read some of these things that China has been doing, and I just want to get your response to this here, Jim. First off, you got China spending. They spend about $400 billion in industrial subsidies. How do we compete with something like that. They operate roughly 500,000 state-owned enterprises. That's just something that we can't compete with when these are the people that are obviously looking to be the dominant country in the world.
No, I agree, but you also have to remember we subsidize a lot of industries in the United States, right? The ethanol industry would not exist in the United States if we didn't subsidize that.
Yeah, I wish
So
we would cut that out. Yeah.
we play the same game, not to the same extent, but we play the same game. Eventually, though, they can no longer afford that. I'm talking about China. The Chinese economy is hurting very badly right now. I was in China in the middle of March for 2 weeks, negotiating with suppliers about the tariffs that were coming, trying to figure out a way to keep things flowing. And what I observed is two things. One, factories in China are operating at about 50% capacity, which is not sustainable. The other thing is I have my own, the gym test for how the Chinese economy is doing, and that is how long it takes me to go from the airport in Shanghai to my hotel.
Really?
When times are good, it takes about an hour and 20 minutes. If it takes less than that, times are bad. It took me 37 minutes the last time I flew into Shanghai to get to the hotel. That means there aren't as many cars on the road, which means people can't afford the gas, which tells me that things are not good. If you go into a Chinese airport to the domestic terminals, these are people flying from one Chinese city to the other. They're ghost towns right now. So I'm very, very, the Chinese economy is struggling. And I do think, and I know we're running out of time in this block, I do think that China actually is going to come to the table and try to negotiate a deal with Trump. And I'll tell you about that why. I'll do that as a tease when we come back, maybe. I don't know how much time we have left.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into that. That is absolutely fascinating. See, Jim, the furthest I go as far as travel is concerned is Chinatown. So I've never been to, I've never been to China. This is why it helps to people, it helps to have people on that have actually traveled the world and know of what they speak when it comes to these issues. And honestly, I gotta be, one of the reasons I love having you on too, Jim, because we can be disagreeable with some things, and I can learn from you. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree, but I learn from you, and it's one of the things that I love. One of the reasons I love having you on, because I'm learning stuff from you right now, and I'm sure the audience is learning as well. And this is very important. I am a free trade guy. I do believe that ultimately that is what is best. I am a little concerned of China trying to clean our clocks, but it doesn't sound like they're in the position to do that. So if Jim will stick with us, I want to do another block with him because he said some really important stuff that I want to follow up on. You're listening to the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back in a moment. Man, Jim, that was good. You just dropped a bomb. I'm like, man, that was good. Hey guys, well listen. Hey, this is what you see. All right, even between breaks, but it's one of the reasons I love talking to Jim. I mean, he knows his stuff. I was sitting there, Jim, before we go back to the show. I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, how can he determine how the economy is doing based upon how quickly he gets to a hotel? And it just made that was good. That was really good. Okay. Do I need to let me do this? Let me talk to you guys just briefly here. And now I've got to find it. Please remember again to subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, wherever you go to get your podcast. Salem Podcast Network, The Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me. Also, please follow me all things social media, X, Instagram, and Facebook. Por favor. I would certainly appreciate that. And I want to talk to you about My Pillow. If I can find the ad here, because they've got a special deal going on. Okay, here we go. And I want to make sure that you guys can take advantage of it. So My Pillow is excited to announce that they are extending the mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. This is your chance to grab incredible deals on some of My Pillow's most popular and newly released items. For example, you can save $40 on the new spring My Pillow bed sheets, available in any size and any color. These luxurious sheets are designed for maximum comfort and breathability. They're perfect for a great night's sleep. I can attest to that. Looking for a meaningful gift, you can save 30% on the brand new My Crosses. Those are inspired by the one that you've seen Mike Lindell wear on TV for 20 years or so. These beautifully crafted crosses come in both men's and women's designs and are proudly made in the USA. So get the 6-piece bath or kitchen towel sets for just $39.98. Initial quantities are extremely limited, so do not wait. And don't forget, their standard My Pillow is on sale right now for just $17.98. Plus, orders over $75 ship for free. So go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl, Carl. I don't spell it like the communists, or call 800-858-0263. 800-858-0263. Okay, now let me go back to my guest, Jim Nelles, a Navy veteran, economist, supply chain expert. Jim, okay, so that was a bomb you dropped before the break, and I thought that was really cool. So China is in trouble, and this makes perfect sense. Frankly, whether this is personal vendetta, I believe that we're in a cold war with China. I think this is something that needs to happen, but ultimately, you think that these tariffs will bring China to their heels. At least they'll come to the table and they'll negotiate.
So there's a theory that's running around in some circles, and they've kind of convinced me that this makes a lot of sense. Some people are starting to talk that China is very good at taking a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100-year view of things,
Right.
not a quarterly view like we do in the United States.
Right.
So they might decide to play ball with President Trump and give him everything that he wants for the next 3.5 years, thinking that once Trump is out of office, they'll just slowly put all their stuff back in place.
Sure.
And, they'll suffer for 3.5 years. They'll lose a little bit of face, but they'll save their economy. If that happens, very, very interesting play here, because if we can get free trade with China, maybe the next administration won't let them put those things back in place. And so we'll see what happens there. But it's an interesting theory about how China can react, because neither country can afford to keep doing this, but we can afford to do it longer than they can, because we have more trading partners in the world, and we'll negotiate. Like I said, we'll surround them with people who are giving us free trade, and you'll see trade leave China in droves and go to Vietnam or go to other places like that.
And I absolutely agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, it's a communist party. I mean, they're ran by a communist party. So I'm thinking that what they'll try and do is wait Trump out. I'm not convinced. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I never underestimate low information voters in the United States of America. So God's honest truth. I mean, people are saying, listen, even I had to check myself the other night. I'm like, if the economy is booming, we'll be fine. And then I'm like, I deal with some people online, and I'm like, okay, we still got an uphill battle. We've got to continue. We've got to continue this fight. I want to circle back to this in a moment, but I do want to get your take on this, Jim, because one of the things that I was concerned about when it came to tariffs in the first place, I was like, I don't know if this is something we should be doing right now if we don't have the budget in place that's gonna add some relief to the American consumer. But and I don't know if this is true or not. But from what I'm understanding, this is something that Trump perhaps wanted to get out of the way, because obviously, I mean, just look at the way that people are reacting, the markets are reacting. You get this out of the way, and then you bring some relief with taxes, with a tax cut. But I gotta say this: if we don't get this spending under control, if we don't get these tax cuts permanent, I think Republicans are going to have a hard time, or are going to have a rough 2026 and perhaps any 2028. What say you, Jim?
Well, I say that if they don't get the tax cuts made permanent, the Trump tax cuts, and they can't make those permanent in this reconciliation, which it now looks like they're going to get it done. So that's really, really good news. But if for some reason they can't get that done, they're going to lose control of the House and probably the Senate in 2026. And then the Trump agenda is over, and we'll probably lose the White House in 2028. These guys need to come together and do what's best for the American people. If they do that, again, we avoid a recession. We have people have confidence, and maybe we can even expand the majority that we have in the House and the Senate to get even more done in the last 2 years of the Trump presidency, and then maybe see an 8-year J.D. Vance presidency after that.
So you have, I guess the House has come up with the House approves the Trump budget blueprint after winning over some of the GOP holdouts. This transpired, I think, within the last couple of hours. So House Republicans, this according to the Wall Street Journal, narrowly approved the blueprint for Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, following a late push by party leaders that won over some holdouts who had worried that the plan doesn't force deep enough spending cuts. A 216 to 214 vote marks a major step forward for Trump's legislative agenda, and it notches a much needed win for the White House. Yada yada yada. I'm trying to see what they had in it. Okay, so I'll get to that later. I was concerned because the spending cuts weren't as deep as I wanted, and I realized this is reconciliation. But I know a lot of there's, hey, don't be a naysayer. But I got to be honest with you, Jim. I'm like, okay, if we start with a small amount, are we really going to do the cuts that we need? Are we going to codify what we've found with Doge so far? And you had Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth out just yeah, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour ago, maybe, saying $5.1 billion in unnecessary contracts with the Department of Defense.
No, I mean, we need to continue to let Doge do what Doge does. And that's one of the greatest political wins for the Republicans. And we just need to let them keep doing it. Think about what Doge has accomplished. Doge got Chuck Schumer to stand on the steps of the Capitol and try to defend the IRS to the American people. Chuck Schumer said, what's next? Are they going to investigate the IRS and cut their budget? Every taxpaying American said, hell yeah. Yes. Right. And then you hear people say, well, the money that Doge is saving doesn't really make a dent in anything. I'm sorry. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, if he sees a $20 bill on the ground, he's going to bend over and pick it up. So we should pick up every darn dollar that we can find.
Doubt.
Now, here's the thing, though, Carl, is that if we're truly going to get our economy under control and get spending under control, we're going to have to look hard at the entitlements. And no one wants to touch the entitlements. The first thing we need to start with is understanding the waste, fraud, and abuse in the entitlements. And that's what I want Doge to continue to do. How can we eliminate people who aren't even born yet already getting unemployment? They had examples of that today that came out. How do we try to get Medicaid not go to illegal aliens in the United States so that we're not spending money on people who shouldn't be here to begin with? How do we make sure that Medicare is doing the right things? How do we make sure that Social Security isn't going to someone like me? I don't need it. It's going to make no difference in my life when I retire. I'd happily give it away, but I also let me stop paying into it, for God's sake. Right? Let me take my own money and do it. I won't take any of it from you. I promise. Right?
Yeah,
I'll sign the form. But someone is eventually going to have to be brave enough to stand up and say the things that everyone knows, but politically it's always been said that that's political suicide to do it. And right now, no one seems to have the cojones to do that.
You know what? And I don't understand, because I think this would be a victory, especially given the narrative that you hear from the AOCs and the Chuck E. Schumers and the Bernie Sanders of the world that used to scold millionaires until he became one, and now it's just billionaires. But I don't understand why. I think now is the perfect time for Republicans to come out and say, "Listen, you know what? We're for every American, frankly, but we are going to means test from here on out for Social Security." I mean, this makes perfect sense. We're also going to make sure we're going to continue with Doge. I know this is a special placement, if you will. So Elon Musk is only there for 130 days. I'm like, codify Doge in the law. If it's not Elon Musk, get somebody else. Leave some people there from that are willing to volunteer, and let's get as much waste, fraud, and abuse out. I don't get this. I don't want to squander this opportunity with Trump, and to some degree, and I know conservatives and Republicans don't want to hear it. If you say anything that's not towing the line, it's like, oh man, you traitor. But I'm like, no, we have the man of steel in office right now. Take advantage of it, because this isn't going to come back around.
I want to see them do three things, and I doubt they'll do any of them. Number one, like you said, codify Doge into law. Make that a permanent seat. Make it a cabinet seat. Number two, means testing for every government program that's out there. Number three, zero-based budgeting for the government. Every single year, you build the budget from the bottom up, just like my clients have to do, just like I do when I run my business. Cutting the growth of spending is not a spending reduction, right? Just because you get fat slower doesn't mean you're not getting fat. It just means you're getting fat slower. And that's what we have to make sure that people understand.
Yeah, I know this is a very Very important point. I want to circle back to China, but I do want to I want to get your take on this. This may seem this may seem like minutia, but I don't think it is. And I thought, you know what, Jim is going to be the perfect guy to ask when it comes to this because of his expertise with the supply chain issues. So Trump takes aim at low pressure showers with it with his executive order. Listen, Jim, I gotta say, I think this is a bigger deal than people are letting on because to me, this is government regulation. This is government overreach. And Trump is like, hey, enough is enough. Enough with these scams. Enough with these little weak showers. He said he needed 15 minutes just to get his hair
his
wet.
big beautiful hair, right? So
I don't have any hair and I take long showers.
it's funny, but the sad part is that humor just reflects reality right now.
Yeah.
And the fact of government overreach telling us what kind of shower we can have, what kind of water heater we can have, what kind of light bulbs we can have. I mean, why is the government involved in my home after I buy my home? It doesn't make any sense to me. I like what Trump is doing there. I like the humor that he's bringing to it. And I think it just makes all of America scratch their head and go, yeah, the man's right. This is silly.
Jim, listen, you've been with me 3 segments. Can you stay just one more or
Of course.
do you need to go?
Nope,
Okay.
I can stay.
All right. So
not my
we've got-
bedtime yet.
All right, perfect. Jim Nelles, economist, supply chain expert. More on the other side. You are listening to the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back momentarily. All right, guys, just a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, Salem Podcast Network. I mean, you're watching us live now, so I appreciate you tuning in. And then please follow me, all things social media, X, Instagram, and Facebook at Carl Jackson Show, at The Carl Jackson Show. Okay, I want to go right back to my guest, Jim Nelles. And again, remember to check out his latest column here. And what is it? Don't doubt the art of the deal. So you can find his writings at Daily Wire, Washington Examiner. He's been on Newsweek, FoxNews.com. So anyway, you can find his writing in a plethora of places. But what I love about Jim too is he's a reasonable guy. He cuts to the chase. He knows the facts. He knows of what he speaks. Let me ask you this, Jim, because obviously I'm sitting here and I'm circling back to China here. All right, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, Trump, go, 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 go. Let's bring these people to their knees. But you also make a great point. As somebody that likes free markets as much as I can't stand the Chinese Communist Party, I'm hoping that, and I know this is a big hope, a big wish, but I want the Chinese Communist parties to be brought to their knees. And I know there's some good people, obviously, in China. And I'd like other people to rise up, but I understand that there's some ways, and I agree with, as you mentioned, Jamie Dimon earlier. Listen, there's some industries, Nikes, whatever. But who cares? I prefer they're made here. But I'd also like to see China crush. That's just is that just ignorance on my part? I got some specific questions that I want to ask, but just your quick take on that. Is that just sheer? And I don't mind you saying it, Jim. No, your take.
It's not ignorance, but I think it's you're mixing two things. There's a difference between the Chinese people and the Chinese government.
Correct.
Chinese people are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Okay.
They've brought me into their home when I visited there. They've treated me with nothing but with graciousness and respect. They want to learn about America. They want to. People are people no matter where they are from, Carl.
Sure.
I've traveled the world, and people are just people. People just, unfortunately, sometimes are born underneath the wrong regime, and so we have to understand the difference. So, the thought process of exactly the thought process of what we try to do with China and other communist countries wasn't necessarily misguided. We thought that if we gave them a taste of capitalism, that they would want more and more capitalism. And even Deng Xiaoping, I think it was Deng Xiaoping, said to get rich is glorious, right? They eventually, got to that point, but the government is still very, very strong. we're going to see what happens. What I want to see, because again, I'm a free trade guy as well, but I also believe that if you're going to tax all my goods going into your country, I'm going to tax all your goods coming into mine until I hurt you more than you can hurt me. And so, I believe in that. What I want to see is eventually free and fair trade, because I believe that if those barriers were taken down, you would see more and more and more American goods being sold in China. They love American goods. I see more Yankees jerseys and baseball caps in China than I see in New York City. They love everything American. The people there do. They want to learn more about America. They want to watch American movies. They want to listen to American music. They want to wear American clothes. And so if the trade barriers go away, we're going to see more and more of that happen. And you'll see the economy and the society open up more and more as well.
Do you think, all right, so right now they're dumping cheap goods into the United States. And listen, I understand there's a place for cheap goods. Like I used to love going to Walmart until the service sketch is horrible. Uh, quite so I don't go there like I used to, but I really used to enjoy going to Walmart. But they make better products there. Correct me if I'm wrong. They dump the cheap goods here. That's something tariffs can fix, should fix.
I mean, you got to look at what should be made where. Again, it comes
Okay.
back to when you're looking at different goods. America should be focused on manufacturing goods where 80% of the value of the good comes from the components of the good, and only 20% comes from labor, because
Okay.
our labor is more expensive here, right? A place like China, a place like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, they should be doing things where it's 80% labor and 20% component costs, because their labor is so much less expensive. And again, that goes all the way back to the very beginnings of economics, is that you focus on the things that you can do best because of the natural resources you have and because of the economy that you're in. America should be making things like computer chips and pharmaceuticals and drones and those types of things, where if China wants to make all the cheap stuff it wants, great, let them do it, because we can't do that effectively here, because the labor component is much higher than the component of the actual of the cost of the components that go into the product.
It's like Jasmine Crockett said, "We ain't picking cotton no more," or something like that.
I'm not going to even go there, man.
You don't have to. I'm just praying to God that she and ALC stays the face of the Democrat Party. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. But I mean, obviously there is some slave labor. That is a component in some of these places, and I understand that. Intellectual property, it was one of the things that Kevin O'Leary talked about, and obviously that's been a major issue. They will steal ideas and all this kind of stuff. Literally, he said they took him to court here in the United States, but he couldn't take them to court, obviously, in China. How do you deal with that?
So what I tell my clients who want to go into China is, one, you're never going to win a lawsuit in China. You're going to have to sue a Chinese company in a Chinese court. Good luck with that, right?
Wow.
But you don't do business with people you don't trust. You also go into that with your eyes wide open. Yes, they're going to steal your intellectual property, but guess what? Every other place in the world does that, Carl. And it's not pretty, but it happens in the United States. United States companies will buy products from overseas, reverse engineer them, and then make them themselves. It's part of doing business. It's the dirty side of doing business, but it happens. So, and I'll go back to the slave labor. And I'm not trying to be a China apologist at all, but American companies who are importing anything into the United States and then selling them into a place like Walmart or Costco or Target, they have to go through hoops to prove to Walmart that slave labor was not used in the production of those goods. There are audits that go on. There are things that happen. Does it happen?
Okay.
Probably, right? But companies bend themselves into human pretzels to try to avoid that happening.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I want to there's enough to be angry about without having to prolong stereotypes. But American companies do a very, very good job of trying to do the right thing when they're importing goods from China, by making sure child labor is not used, by making sure slave labor is not used, by making sure that they follow some sort of environmental tests, and they're not dumping waste into the rivers. I've had to go into companies and do complete audits on them to then go back to my clients and verify that their suppliers were complying with American regulations, not with Chinese regulations.
Wow. Okay. All right. All right. So that's why I bring you on, Jim. I mean, this is stuff that I did not know. And I can appreciate that. I mean, I understand. I just want to see the CCP go down in flames. But I mean, as a Christian, as a believer, I mean, I know that there's an underground church that is just in China that is just burgeoning, and I want to see free people free. I know the same is true with Iran. You have the mullahs of Iran, you have the Ayatollah. But then you have the people of Iran, and I don't want to conflate the two, but I do want to see the CCP go down in flames. So I guess that's where my where my zeal comes from. Let me ask you this: Section 201 and 301. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this under the Trade Act of 1974. Apparently, some of the stuff that we're seeing with Donald Trump, this is something that I guess Richard Nixon first did under Section 201 and Section 301, which gave the authority that was delegated to the president from Congress to safeguard American industry and punish unfair practices. So apparently, we've kind of had this in place, and we've had no one willing to do it since the 70s. What we're witnessing Trump do.
Exactly. And Trump talked about this, I believe it was a press conference yesterday or it was this morning. The days are running together at this point, Carl. But he said, I'm not mad at China. I'm not mad at Vietnam. I'm mad at the presidents who sat behind this desk in this chair and signed stupid trade deals with these nations. He said, they're the ones to blame. He's like, do you blame a country for taking advantage of someone who's stupid? No, of course you take advantage. Just like, remember the debate with Hillary Clinton when he was talking about the tax laws. He said the tax laws are stupid and I'm able to take advantage of them because the tax laws are stupid and I use them to my advantage. He's like, I'm not breaking the law, but I'm going to use the law to my advantage. And that's what these countries did when they negotiated with the United States. And that's what he's trying to change. And it hurts a little bit right now because, again, if you're sick and you take some medicine, sometimes the medicine makes you throw up before it makes you feel better.
3 months, 6 months down the line, Jim, if you could look in your crystal ball, and I know this is unfair to do, but I'll ask you anyway. Where do you see what do you see happening? All with all of this what the left is calling chaos. I think it needs to be done, but where do you see this going?
I see the majority of the tariffs remaining frozen while they continue negotiations. I think you'll see just a plethora of trade deals announced in principle while they go through and then hammer out all the details and get the documents signed. I think you'll see negotiations between the U.S. and China. Will it take 3 months or 6 months? I'm not really sure. The other question comes into what's he going to do with Mexico and Canada, because there's still tariffs going on there because he's upset with the fentanyl situation and with the illegal alien situation. That's a wild card as well. But for the lion's share of the world, you're not going to see the tariffs come back, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, Jim Nelles, appreciate you, man. Daily Wire, Washington Examiner. Check out his stuff. Always appreciate you coming on.
Have a great night. Thanks, Carl.
All right, absolutely. All right, Jim, if you'll